Hello out there, and welcome once again to another episode of New Apartment Radio Podcast. It is your host, DJ Bill, along with my producer, Jackson.
The producer.
Today we're producing number 24. That's right, we're number two. It's a case of beer for out there if you want to drink while listening to this.
Go to a beer store, get a 2-4.
Yeah. Just don't go. I mean, if this was recorded 2 weeks ago, you couldn't go to the LCBO. They were on strike for those sweet 2 weeks. That was thumbs up. Anyways, today, with the help of my girlfriend Melissa, who gave me this idea, because we were kind of sitting here going, "What are we going to talk about?" But this is actually a good one because of something I played last night. Solo artists, a person from a band says, "You know what? It's time to do my own thing." And sometimes it's not always just the singer. It's the guitarist, the drummer.
Yep.
It happens.
Sometimes, well, it normally starts out as one person, right?
Yep.
And then maybe they have, since they already know the band, maybe it's like, hey, can you play on this song? Or can you put a solo down for me? Or this or that. And then become a separate band, a part of the normal band, right?
They do. The main band, I think, and a lot of people would probably say this is true, is Genesis. Because I think a lot of their band members did solo albums.
I think, weren't they a big, like what's the word I'm looking for? A mega group? Like they were one.
Well, they were, but they originally were just a group.
Yeah,
and then
they split apart and they came back, and it was kind of like a Audio Slave, whatever. Where it's just a bunch of well-known musicians coming together.
Yeah, because there was a lot. I mean, Phil Collins, of course, is like the main. Dude. He was the drummer for Genesis, which is pretty cool. But that's the thing. They were like. And when that happens, if you're a fan of the band, then you kind of become a fan of their solo stuff by proxy. You kind of like, well, you want to give like, oh, I like the band. I see what he's doing over here. Let's check this out. You end up buying back in the day, you bought the CDs because CDs it seemed like a lot of that era when they went solo was the CD era more so than now.
Definitely in the 90s and the 2000s.
Yes. So we'll go down a list here, I guess, of things. First of all, let's talk about Soundgarden and Pearl Jam, because those two bands became Temple of the Dog. They became not really a solo, that was a compilation, but again, a super group.
Yeah,
like you said.
What was it? It was what singer was it? Was it
Andrew Wood died from Mother Love Bone.
Yeah.
That's when Eddie Vedder became the lead singer, thus becoming Pearl Jam.
Mm-hmm.
Chris Cornell was best friends with Andrew Wood, and they kind of did a album to his memory, to his family as such, called Temple of the Dog. The main song was Hunger Strike off that one.
Yeah.
Yes. So Chris Cornell, no stranger of that either, had his own solo album after Soundgarden broke up. And I believe that album was called Euphoria Morning, I think it was called. His big hit was Can't Change Me, was the big hit off that one. That came out in 1999, if my memory is correct on that.
Let's take a look. Euphoria Morning, 99.
Yes, that's right. So when grunge died in 96, and it died in 96, it didn't die when Kurt died in 94, it died in 96 when Soundgarden split up. That was the end. Soundgarden. Pearl Jam wasn't doing grunge in the late 90s. They went a different route.
Yeah, they went just kind of rock.
Yeah. And their rock, as some Pearl Jam fans said, wasn't that great either as time went on, unfortunately. But Chris did his solo stuff. Alice in Chains, they split up because of Lane's drug use. So Jerry Cantrell, the guitarist of Alice in Chains, brought out his solo stuff, and he had 2 albums in 99 as well, in 2002. These artists, which is cool because, at least for me, Jerry Cantrell still sounded like Alice in Chains, so I was content with that.
Yes.
So because Jerry did a lot of the backup.
He did a lot of the writing.
Yeah, he did. He was because Lane was a heroin addict. Lane wasn't doing well. Lane, of course, had Mad Season, which was a grunge band too, a kind of like a spin-off. He did his own thing, but with Jerry, you could tell when you heard his solo stuff, he was definitely the magic behind Alice in Chains. You said you had that happen recently, because I asked you if you checked out Bruce Dickinson's solo stuff, and you said, I can't really get into it because it's missing the
Yeah,
guitar, the vibe.
yeah, it's missing the bass player, Steve Harris. He's a big part of the writing process. He's written most of their songs,
Yeah.
and a lot of their songs that I really like, he's like the sole or like one of the two writing credits on.
Yeah.
And they had a song called From a no, From Here to Eternity. No, that's not right. If Eternity Should Fail. They had a song that came out in 2015. It was originally supposed to be a Bruce Dickinson solo song,
Right.
but he showed them, or I don't know if Steve Harris overheard it or he showed them to it, and he liked it so much they put on Iron Maiden. And then when Bruce Dickinson put his newest album out, he had a B-side single as the original version of that song, and it's just not the same. You can tell that you're missing that Iron Maiden part.
Yeah.
And I still like Bruce's solo stuff, but it's just kind of him with a wannabe Iron Maiden sound.
Yeah.
Like it's weird to say that, but the instruments are very much like trying to imitate that sound with a more softer side.
I actually just saw something online not too long ago. I meant to send you this through Instagram. I guess Bruce just he sat down with the other lead singer from Iron Maiden.
Huh? Oh, with Blaze Bailey?
Yeah.
Yeah,
They
yeah.
sat down together or something, had a photo op together or something.
Cool, yeah.
And had a talk. And that was kind of neat to see there. But as with the solo stuff, going back to that, certain people do it because their band just collapsed. For example, um, Alice or not Alice, I already did Alice. Sorry, Guns N' Roses.
Yeah.
Slash, he's had a solo career now.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
He's just like a Guns for Hire musician.
Yeah, he just did one with Miles Kennedy from Alter Bridge. They had their thing. Slash also, I believe, just did his own too. I want to say,
he has a few albums of his own.
Yeah, he's supposed to be touring here in Windsor, but he got canceled because of a death in the family. Because Tony was actually going to go see it. Yeah, Slash was in another super group too. Of course, that would be Velvet Revolver with Scott Weiland. So for those who don't know, Velvet Revolver was pretty much just Guns N' Roses, and there was another guy from another band. I can't remember the band now, and then Scott, and they formed Velvet Revolver, which is one of the hardest metal rock albums. You can't say it's metal, but you can't say it's rock. It's like that.
It's hard rock.
Yeah, it's that like they could be playing with a metal band or they could be playing with a rock band. Yeah, it's that, and it's such a good band, such a good album. And sometimes these super groups, like Audio Slave, when Chris joined up with Rage Against the Machine, these bands released this magical album that you didn't know you wanted, but
right, like that's just
yeah
takes you by surprise because you're like, huh, like you'd think because a lot of musicians have egos and they have their own kind of ways of doing things. You'd think that there would be a lot of headbutts, and there probably was recording it and writing it, but they end up being masterpieces.
Oh,
big time. Of the time.
Big time. It's insane when these, because they're almost like a dream team, right? It's like you could always say like, oh, imagine if like this singer was with this band or whatnot, and then in the 2000s it all started to happen, and you're just like, holy crap!
Late 90s, 2000s.
Yeah, it is so cool, and now you don't really see that anymore. What you see is like collaborations, right? Collaborations of you don't really see anymore of like, let's form this group because so and so from our group wants to try a solo thing, so why don't we go off and do that? Those days are kind of
because it's I think people have learned that breaking apart permanently is just it doesn't work because you always come back. Fans want to hear it, so they separate, but they're not gonna break up. They're just gonna be like, okay, we're gonna do our own things for a few years and just kind of do other stuff.
Yeah, and it's pretty smart.
Yeah,
and you end up with more sales, and then you end up having like more albums produced that you do, and your fans are going to buy into it because it's what they do. Green Day did it recently. Billy Joe Armstrong did a solo album of cover songs.
Oh yeah.
So it happens.
And like stuff like Iron Maiden, I'm pretty sure every musician except for maybe not every, I should say 3 of the musicians for sure had their own bands.
Yeah.
Bruce Dickinson has his career. Steve Harris, the bassist, had British Lion. I think Adrian Smith has his own band, and I think he also plays for Bruce Dickinson. So like they've all have their own musical things when Iron Maiden's not going on, like they're not recording or they're not touring.
That's true. Yeah.
It's like if they live in music, I'm not surprised. Especially Steve Harris. Like he is like if he didn't have music, I don't know what the fuck he'd do.
No, and hey, it's more money in his pocket when you have all these other albums and bands. Blink-182 is a band that's back together now. They're doing their thing, charging $1,000 a ticket, I believe, for their concerts, but that's besides the point. They started off as a punk band, and then Tom DeLonge and Travis Barker did Boxcar Racer, and then came back. They released another Blink album, and then Blink split up. Tom did Angels and Airwaves, and Mark Hoppus did Plus 44, which sounded pretty much was just Blink-182 without Tom. Yeah. And
less cringe lyrics.
Yeah, because I mean, I'm a fan of Mark's voice and Mark's stuff. I don't really like Tom. Tom's whiny.
Yeah.
Tom's like, like when he sings, it's like, I get it. That's his voice. He can't help it.
Punk
yeah.
Sound, yeah.
But I like Mark's voice better. I always have. That's why I think I like certain Blink-182 songs I like better than others because it's Mark as the main singer and Tom's the backup or not singing at all. Is it rare or pretty common where bands have two singers and they can intertwine?
I think it's rare. There's a lot. It's not uncommon for bands to have multiple singers, but normally it's a backup singer that does chants, or they'll sing the chorus to give an extra layer to make it sound bigger.
Yeah.
Or maybe there's some songs like System of a Down where it's like they kind of both sing, but Darren's definitely your certain sections and Serge is your 90% of the time, right? For example, band like Ice Nine Kills. Spencer Charnas, the main singer, he does all of the clean singing pretty much. However, every other member of the band does harsh vocals. Like the drummer, both guitarists, the bass player, they all do harsh vocals. So it ends up being, even the singer does, like even Spencer does. So it ends up being like, and they do it in different parts because they all have different voices. So when you learn the songs very well and you learn their voices, it's kind of interesting because it's like you hear all these different sounds, but they're coming from different people.
Yeah, and that kind of helps make songs more fun too. It really does.
Yeah, for sure.
Then you got the course, the two main singers. You got bands like 311, Linkin Park, even Crazy Town had it, System of Down. You got the back and forth banter of the music. I'll do line one, you do line two, blah blah blah. Yeah. Then you get one of my favorite bands, which is insane to think, Hollywood Undead. Every single person in that band sings.
It's ironic because they're a rock, like a rap rock, maybe sometimes even a metal band.
Yeah,
but they're basically a hip hop group.
Yeah,
they each one of them is doing their own song, lyrics. They each do their own songs. Some songs there's only two of them. Some songs there's all six of them or whatever.
It's pretty neat, and it reminds me of like Wu-Tang Clan, where everyone there was like six guys in the group, and they all had a piece of their song.
Or
D12's one,
or any of those rap groups.
La Coca Nostra did it. They had 5 guys in their band. Yeah, it's just like, so yeah, it's just weird to think like you can be able to pull that off and do it so well, because it's a lot of bands would say it's hard with one singer to do it when you got these.
Well, it's hard to find a singer a lot of times because like you want to find a certain sound that fits your band, and then there's some bands that are like, hey, we have 4, go fuck yourself. It's like, what?
Yeah, it's
that they all merge well together, like they all sound similar enough but yet distinct, and they all go in the same, like you couldn't have, even though I love to hear it, you could not have Dave Mustaine and James Hetfield on a song. It would sound...
No.
Unless they wrote it in the style of Megadeth, where they wrote it with Dave's voice in mind, it would not... If it was a Metallica song and Dave was on it, it would sound terrible.
But Metallica and Motorhead could have worked together.
Oh, fuck easily. Yeah. Fucking Lemmy's amazing.
Lemmy, of course, Motorhead covered Enter Sandman, which is... I like it better than the original.
I've heard it once, I think, or twice.
Yeah.
I know you showed me, and I think I listened to it once afterwards.
I think it's better.
I gotta listen to it again.
And nothing against Metallica's. Metallica's is great too. Just something.
You've heard so much, right?
Yeah.
Like the different versions, just it's something different. Right?
And I read up. People always said this, and I agree. Motorhead was a metal band, but they were punk metal.
They were proto, like Black Sabbath, in my opinion, is the first metal band, and Motorhead was around the same time. They're proto metal in the sense because they're not quite metal.
No.
But if they are metal, they're speed metal.
Yeah.
Which it's weird because you got thrash metal, which is Metallica or Megadeth, Slayer, and right before them was speed metal for 3-4 years, not even 2 years maybe, where there's a few other bands, but it's basically Motorhead, and then like a few other like smaller bands that no one's heard of, where it's that same energy, but not as complex.
Yeah.
It's much simpler riffs. It's much simpler, just in your face attitude.
Yeah. It's
and
fun.
Loudness.
Yeah, it's just so
especially
fun.
Motorhead. It's just I've never want to go, like, obviously can't anymore. But if Motorhead was still around, I wouldn't want to go to a concert because my ears would bleed. They have their speakers so loud.
I'm sorry, I'm not laughing at what you said. We know what we're laughing at there. Anyways, I just lost my train of thought now because of that. I didn't expect that.
You know what's something interesting? You said that there's not many bands or artists doing solo careers nowadays.
Yeah.
The one that kind of stood out to me was, I think it was 2 years before 72 Seasons came out. Kirk Hammett released a solo album.
That's right, yeah.
It's like 4 songs, I think. It was a small album. I don't get why he didn't use that style of music, because it was like a classical guitar, like I think it was instrumental completely. I might be wrong.
Well,
but it was
probably because James and Lars has the final.
Well, sure, but like he didn't like. If you listen to the solos and the guitar work on that, it's a lot more of his training. Like it's a lot more of the classical training and that kind of stuff. And then on 72 Seasons, you have the weird wah pedal solos, and like wah wah wah.
Yeah.
Where's that? Like you can do it. You've proven you've done it. You can show that you've done cool stuff.
Maybe he just didn't want to bring his style into Metallica.
Maybe, but like that's what they grew. Like the early Metallica had that style, and that's what made those early solos, like the Unforgiven,
I know,
One, and all those ones, so good.
I know. I don't know either. That's a good one to wonder. It's got to be just at that moment they're into doing their own thing.
I wonder if it's also because I watched a few weeks ago. I watched the making of Hardwired.
Yeah.
And because that's like they did a documentary on it, and you can tell that he wanted the wah pedal, and even Lars wants the wah pedal in certain things. And I'm like, it sounds cool every now and then, but they use it so often that it's like, do they not know what it sounds like without this wah pedal anymore? Like,
I guess not. They're just.
It's really weird that they it almost seems like they write for that.
Yeah.
They write the song based around a solo, and they're thinking it's going to be wah pedal.
Here's one that's interesting. We've talked about this before about if a singer gets replaced, are they still the same band? Here's an interesting one I just thought about. So Adam leaves 3 Days Grace. They still keep their name, bring in the new singer, but Scott Stapp and Creed, they separate. The remaining members of Creed get Miles Kennedy, but they don't call themselves Creed. They're now Alter Bridge. Yeah. They chose to, we're.
That's weird because it's also with Adam. He went and did Saint Asonia.
Yeah.
It seems to me that when the singer leaves, he'll create a different band.
Mm-hmm.
But whoever's in the band still, even if it's just one member, they'll keep that band name.
Yeah.
Which is like, why?
Yeah. Like, and like
just make a new band. Like,
yeah.
You can keep, like, if 3 Days Grace kept 3 Days Grace as, what was it, their 4th album? Was the last one with
Adam? Yep.
Yeah. So if they kept it like that, and then since nowadays they started recording, and they do an album with Adam on it, or songs. Yeah,
I guess Adam's coming back and doing stuff with them now.
Yeah, so if they had done that, like left it at that, and then later on kind of come back together, but had with what is his name? That replaced him?
I forget. He's the guy from My Darkest Days. I don't know his name.
They took him and the rest of the band, and they made a different band. Even if they called it something similar than the 3 Days Grace, then that'd be better because then people wouldn't expect this thing.
Exactly, and maybe that's why I never got into like you said, a lot of the newer stuff by 3 Days Grace is good. I just can't get into it. It's like it's not 3 Days Grace. It's
Three
not
Darkest Days.
Yeah, it is.
They should have called it that.
That would have been cool, actually. Yeah. Mark Tremonti, I'm guessing. I mean, I still think he is the leader of Creed and Alter Bridge, even though Scott and Miles are the singers. I feel Mark's the main because Mark has his own solo.
He's the guitarist.
Yeah,
right? Yeah.
He did his own solo albums. He did a Christmas album. He did a CD he put out where he sounds like what's that guy, that famous singer, Frank Sinatra.
Yeah, the blues singer.
Yeah. Like that guy, Mark he's so gifted.
From what I've heard, and I don't know. It's been a long time since I heard this interview, because I heard an interview about the newest Alter Bridge album, which I think that's one of their best. I think it's their best album. It's so good. I heard something that, and it wasn't from the band. It was from like people talking about the album, but it felt like, I think it was the guitarist. He let loose on the kind of dark and atmospheric side, and Miles stepped back, because normally Miles brings in the light side of it, like for Metalingus.
Yes,
it's a lot more bright sounding and it's a lot more uplifting.
Yeah,
and I think a lot of that's, even though the guitars are kind of like metally guitar, like creepy guitar, like they're more serious and dark.
Yeah,
but I think Miles brings that in, especially with his voice being higher register and higher octave. But in this newest album, I think he kind of stepped back. Like there's 2 or 3 songs that are more bright, but the rest of the album is very progressive and very moody and whatnot.
So it's probably more Creed-like.
It is a lot. But I think he let the guitarist
Mark
have more creative influence on it.
Well,
I think that's what it was. Maybe
you know what? That makes sense, because when that album was, so it's coming out. Is it out yet, or is that the old one?
Yeah, that was the one that came out.
Well, there's supposed to be another one. I think there's another one they're working on, because he was touring with Scott doing Creed stuff then, so that could be why he had that.
I think so, yeah. Because it came out in 21, and you said they were started, like they made a Creed album, 2016 or something like that.
2012 was their last one, and then they split up again, and he went back. He did solo, then he went back to Alter Bridge.
They've been like touring with them, But I don't know. I love that album because it's a lot more like Creed is. I feel like Creed and Nickelback are 2 sides of the same coin. They sound very similar. They have very similar song structures and whatnot. Nickelback has worse lyrics, but
I'll agree with that on the first 2 Creed albums. The third and their last one, I feel it got heavier.
I just know the first 2.
Yeah, if you listen to some of their, like the last 2 albums, you're just like, oh, that doesn't sound anything like their first, like My Own Prison or anything. Yeah.
And I feel like Alter Bridge is kind of like, it should be the point where you can experiment more, because you have all of those members were in, except were all of the members in Alter Bridge in Creed?
Yeah, it's just Miles is the only difference.
Yeah, so they could 100% just make the same stuff. Well, why would you?
Yeah.
You have Creed. You could go back and make that and make the same more generic song structure, which isn't bad. I'm just saying in the sense of overused song structure.
Yeah,
and use Alter Bridge as your more progressive and experimental side.
Well, I think maybe they were trying to dumb down Alter Bridge in the sense where Alter Bridge kind of got so mainstream. Maybe they weren't looking to get. Maybe that wasn't their game plan. I don't know either.
Those first 2 albums from Alter Bridge really blew them up, right? Especially Metalingus
and I don't think that was, maybe that wasn't their initial plan, because they just got done. Creed ended in like 2000 and I want to say 2 or I bet or 3. I think that's when they broke up for good.
I have no idea.
And then the Metalingus album came out in like 2004.
Yeah, I think it was around there.
Because that's when Edge started using it, was in 2004.
Weathered was the last album that came out in 2001.
Yeah. So I don't know. Like, it's possible that maybe they're like some of these bands too. They release an album. I don't think they figure it's going to become as popular. That probably wasn't their intention, and then it does. It blows up, and they're like, oh well, now we kind of have to do music that they want to hear and sound like again. And then maybe that's why Mark said on that last album, well, let's kind of like go back into a different way with this now.
Because I think I honestly think Pawns and Kings, that's the album I'm talking, the newest one. I think that's their most progressive album. Like they had some other albums that were more darker. Like I haven't listened to much of them, but I heard Blackbird is on the more darker side. That's their second album.
Okay.
But I haven't gone through and listened to it, so I'm not certain. But like this one's a lot more progressive, and I think that's more just letting loose and experimenting.
I know I got to check out more of Alter Bridge because I just don't.
I do too. I really like their newest one, but from what I've heard, it's their heaviest album.
I told Roger was talking to me about Creed, saying like, oh, some of their early stuff's kind of kind of like what you said. I was like, well, you need to listen to Overcome off their fourth album. He's like, they had a fourth album. I'm like, yeah, 2012. So we were outside. I was doing carts the one day, and he was outside on a smoke break, and he loads it up, and he's listening to it. He's just like, this is Creed? I'm like, yeah, dude. I'm like, that's heavy. He's like, it is heavy. I'm like, told you.
Overcome?
Yeah, Overcome.
It's not even on Spotify.
Really?
No, they have Mile in Prison, Human Clay, Weathered, and Full Circle. That's the only albums.
Well, no, the album, like the song is Overcome.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
That's on Full Circle.
Yeah, it's on Full Circle. Yeah, that's that album's really, that's their last album. That's the one that's really, really good. Overcome, it was their radio hit song, and it is so hard. And he's like, I can't believe this. I'm like, told you, dude. I'm like, it's loud. So, but then they broke up again after that, and it's like, well, what just happened? Like, why is this going on?
A moment of fame.
Yeah, and then I guess that's enough again. But then again, I guess if you're juggling two bands and your own solo career,
and if you're not like, obviously I don't know the band, but if they're having creative differences or whatnot and they're not getting along, then there's because this is not why they broke up in the first place.
Scott had a bit of a drinking issue.
Yeah, so
it seems like lead singers named Scott don't do well for their bands.
Lead singers don't do well
for
their bands.
Speaking of which, let's talk about the funniest situation when it comes to replacing a lead singer in a band. Let's go talk about Stone Temple Pilots. So their first album, Core, was a rock metal album. No doubt it was. It wasn't grunge. It was more of a metal sound. Then Scott never experimented with drugs ever. After that album came out and got released, he did heroin for the first time, and that's when
Purple.
Yep. Purple came out, and that album was good. Purple was good.
I used to have Love Song's a great song.
Yeah. Then their next album came out, which still has a few good songs, but it plummeted.
That was on the
Tiny Music for the Vatican or whatever. Then he leaves the band. He wants to do a solo career, so he does Scott Weiland 12 Bar Blues, and it's really weird music. I like the album, but it's definitely not rock. It's definitely not metal. It's blues with like sound like keyboards, or kind of like almost like a rap. Like you put down a sound of music and you go with that, right? What did STP do? They could have called it quits. No, they formed a group called Talk Show, where the lead singer looked and sounded like Scott Weiland. Yes, their big song on there was called Hello, Hello. And I couldn't believe it when I first heard this song and I saw the video. I'm like, oh, so it's Scott Weiland? And no, it wasn't. It was just I don't even know if is it on Spotify.
It's on Spotify. It is. It's not very popular. Like their biggest song is 200,000. They had 3,000 monthly listeners. Like it's nothing.
Yeah. They ended up, of course, going back to STP, and they released number 4, and then they called it number 4 not because it was the 4th album, but because their 3rd album came in 4th overall instead of number 1 like their last 2.
Which is ironic because it is their 4th. I don't know why. I know. Why didn't they just call it? Because it's their 4th album.
I know. It's funny. Then the 5th album, Shangri-La, came out. Then they broke up, and that's when Velvet Revolver was born again. Scott also had Scott Weiland and the Magnificent Bastards, and he had another band he did with the guitarist, the drummer, and the bass player from No Doubt.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Huh.
Yes, no. When Gwen was doing her I'm Asian and rapping gimmick that she thought she was good at. Sure. Yeah. For some reason, Gwen thought she was a hip hop artist in like the mid 2000s or late 2000s. They got with Scott and did some tracks. They put out some songs. So
do you know what that was called?
I can look it up right now.
Because I was gonna ask you. I'm looking at Stone Temple Pilots Spotify right now. Did they get back together recently?
Yeah, they have a new singer.
I was gonna say because they have had an album in 2018 and 2020.
Yeah, they have a new singer now.
Oh.
The album for Scott, let's see, what is it here? It's called Happy in Galoshes is the album that he did with.
Why does that motherfucker always have the worst names for albums?
Yeah, I know.
Fucking tiny something.
Tiny music.
Like,
yeah, Happy and 12 Bar Blues is Happy and Galoshes is the one where he did some stuff, I believe, with No Doubt. Not everything on the album was with No Doubt, but I feel there was a few tracks he was kind of experimenting. But it's good music. It's not like that weird music he did with 12 Bar Blues. It's actually like
it's normal.
Normal rock that you like. I don't maybe old people rock. You know what I mean? It's not like loud
Dad
or
rock.
Heavy. It's what's that?
Dad rock.
It is dad. Yeah, that would be dad. It actually yes, that is that album is the perfect example of what dad rock is. There's wow. Well, soft rocks works too. Yeah, he did a cover of Fame on that one. That's how I knew of that. And but yeah, it's all right. But yeah, they got a new lead singer for Stone Temple Pilots because their big hit was "Roll Me Under" from 2018. I believe was their big hit. So I have it on my metal playlist too. It's really loud and fun. It's just a good song. And but yeah, it's weird to think like I guess that works if you can find someone that sounds like the lead singer.
Yeah,
then it's okay.
AC/DC
did it
as long as I didn't. Yeah, that's an interesting one because he sounds like him, but like people will die on a cross saying they sound different.
They don't.
They don't.
No.
But yeah, sometimes it's kind of it's hard because sometimes it's cool when they do that.
Yeah.
Like AC/DC like this. And then sometimes it's kind of insensitive. Like if Linkin Park were trying to replace Chester with another guy that sounded like him, nobody would accept it.
You can't. And
that's why they're finding a female vocalist to go on tour again.
Nirvana knew that because when they went into the Hall of Fame, they had female artists sing their songs. And plus, just out of spite, because Courtney Love was right there too. I loved it. It was awesome. But here's something interesting too. Did you know that Nirvana was more than just 3 members? Like what's his name? Pat Smear, I think his name is. The guitarist from Foo Fighters was also with Nirvana back then. That's how Dave knows him.
Oh yeah?
Yeah. So
because I know there's like the 3 members like consistently, but
yeah,
did they switch out the guitarist at some point?
No, they would just have an unrecognized guitar, like kind of like what Green Day does. Green Day has like 6 people in their band now. Yeah,
you know, they just like tour musicians and whatnot. They kind of just help out. For extra parts or whatnot.
It makes sense because especially if Billy Joe needs to stop to get like the crowd into it or something, he can't be continuing to play the riff, right? Green Day now, they just came out with their latest album. Billy Joe.
Saviors.
Yep. Billy Joe before that had his solo thing at one time.
No Fun Mondays.
That's right. Yep. Here's something else about them. Billy Joe was in another band too before not before Green Day, but like a side project of Green Day. Yeah. And I can't remember what it was now, but I remember some songs leaked on the internet in the early 2000s. Because I totally forget what it was now. Pinhead Gunpowder.
Yep, that's there.
Yep.
I mean, music groups. He's 8 just searching up.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know how many of these are accurate, but the Network, the Cover-Ups, Pinhead Gunpowder, the Long Shot, Foxborough Hot Tubs, the Lookouts, and Blacks.
Wow.
I don't know how many of those are accurate, but
I know Pinhead Gunpowder is definitely accurate. But yeah, it says Green Day side project, Foxborough Hot Tubs. Yeah. Wow, that's insane.
Punk rock band Pinhead Gunpowder. Yeah. Some of those are on their Wikipedia, so yeah.
Yeah. So Green Day, yeah, Billy, like a lot of these bands that are mainstream, I think they do that because let's be honest, when you're a mainstream band, you kind of get pigeonholed in, well, you kind of got to sound like this, do that. Yeah. You don't get to experiment.
Or if you do, everyone's going to castrate you.
Yep. Can you think of a band that experimented that people shit on, like for an album? like besides Saint Anger, I don't want.
I was gonna say like
Well,
the
Saint Anger's
obvious.
Saint Anger's the obvious choice, but I'm
But do
trying to
we do
think.
the other one?
Yeah,
The
like
other obvious ones like Uno Do Tre? Like,
well, they got looked down on, I think, because Billy Joe had a crazy moment in time on stage, and they released those albums like every 30 days. Like it was like a, I I still say to this day, if they would have taken they should have released it as like a box set, like, or they should have taken their best songs and made it one album.
Yeah. I'm trying to think because like Iron Maiden, you could say with the Blaze Bailey stuff, but that's a different singer, so that's obviously gonna get hate.
Yeah.
Megadeth with Risk. That's a pretty good one, but that's like another Saint Anger thing. Like they went poppy for it, and people didn't like it. Nowadays, people look on it with better memories, but
what about GNR when they brought out the?
Oh yeah, the spaghetti thing.
Yeah.
We don't talk about that one.
Yeah.
But then again, GNR has been bad ever since Use Your Illusion 2. They haven't released anything good after.
I didn't.
Maybe a few songs.
You know what's funny? Use Your Illusion 2 is like my least favorite. Like Use Your Illusion 1 was really good.
I like it. I don't know which one I like better because I only know 2 songs off of each one basically.
Do you know
their covers?
You know November Rain.
I know November Rain. I know
don't you must know Don't Cry.
I've heard it. I don't know it that well.
Live and Let Die.
Live and Let Die.
Knocking on Heaven's Door.
Knocking on Heaven Door, which is on part 2.
Yeah.
Let me pull it up here real quick. Where is that? There it is. Estrange is on part 2. That's the one I know.
That's
I know those 4.
Estrange is like November Rain, kind of. Yeah. The greatest hits. We had to get the Appetite for Destruction album because for some reason on the greatest hits they did not put Mr. Brownstone on it. Like, how do you not put that? Was a radio song. It's
a big hit.
Yeah,
I don't like it, but it's a big hit.
It's a big hit. It's about heroin, of course. That's
I do not like. I've never liked that song.
You never cared for that one.
I've listened to the whole album. There's a lot of songs I don't care for, especially on the later half of it. But Mr. Brownstone was like the big song that I was like, nah.
Wow.
Like if I had to choose, I would choose Night Train over it any day of the week.
See, I like Mr. Brownstone over Paradise City.
Oh no, I don't. I those top 3, the Paradise City, Sweet Child of Mine, and Welcome to the Jungle.
Yeah, Welcome to the Jungle is great.
Sweet Child of Mine's probably my least favorite, but
for some reason Paradise City never did. I mean, I like it, but I never. If it was on the radio and something else was playing I like better, I would. Yeah, always. But for some reason, Welcome to the Jungle, it's like if that's playing, I'm listening.
The best riff ever. Like like people say Sweet Child of Mine, but that's like, do you know the story behind that riff?
No.
So the riff was it's a scale. I forget what scale it is. Pentatonic maybe. Whatever scale. It's a scale and it's just like one different note. But Slash was just practicing, messing around, doing stuff, and Axl's like, I like that riff. We should play that. And then Slash hated it because it wasn't an actual riff. It was just him practicing. And every time they played it up until like when they broke up, and then up until recently, he hated that riff.
Wow.
And even now, I don't think he likes it, but he'll play it because he knows how iconic it is. But it's super funny. But yeah, Welcome to the Jungle, I think, is the best song on the album. Like it's.
Yeah, it is. There's no doubt about that. The funny thing is, now we're talking about solo stuff. Let's talk about Axl Rotten. That guy left the band. Not Axl Rotten. What's his name? Axl Rose. Well, his music is rotten. Yeah. Axl Rose. He
refused to let him. He refused to go to a solo album.
Yeah, and he kind of flirted. He always said, "Well, maybe," because there's always talk like, "Oh, we're gonna do this, that," and nothing ever came out of it. Zach De La Rocha from Rage Against the Machine, same thing. I'm gonna do a solo thing. Like, no, you didn't. Okay, Rage Against the Machine might be the most overrated band ever, and I say this because
as a fan,
yeah, I am a fan. They've released 5 albums in total. 3 are actual albums that they produced and made themselves. 3. Yeah, 4th one is covers. 5th one's a live one.
Yeah,
and they're in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. How the hell is that even possible?
I could see it just from the first 2. Like they're so iconic that I'm like, yeah, fair enough. But the amount of praise they get for having 2 great albums, another really good album, and then a cover album, like there's some bands out there that have 3 times as many albums that still aren't in the Hall of Fame. Like
Kiss. Is Kiss in it yet?
I think so.
Did Kiss get in?
I probably, yeah.
Okay, I remember there were some bands that they just.
I know Iron Maiden. I don't know if they're in yet or not, but they took them like 6 years to get them in, and it was like, what the hell?
Yeah, it's weird that the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is
I
picky.
understand the importance of the band. They are one of the most influential and biggest bands of that time, but for some reason music critics don't put into account how much music they released. Like obviously if one album is a genre defining and like something like Appetite for Destruction, it was the glam rock metal whatever. That is the glam metal.
Interesting
album.
you say that. Now there's going to be the topic of conversation for a lot of musicians or fans. Is GNR a glam band or are they metal?
Yeah, I've always considered them glam rock, more on the side of Bon Jovi and Kiss, because they have a few heavy songs and that's it. But compared to Motley Crue, they're a lot lighter.
I always considered them. I thought to myself, if Mother Love Bone could be grunge, Guns N' Roses could have been grunge because it's the same style of music.
Just the vocalist that's different.
Yeah,
it's the only thing that's different, and maybe they have a little bit more faster guitars, but.
And grunge is such a stupid name. Let's be honest.
It's stupid.
Grunge is metal that's not.
It's dirty rock.
Yeah, it's not like metal as in like, oh, it's Metallica, but Soundgarden and Metallica toured together back in the day.
Like, I understand why it's a genre, because it's a sound that you can identify.
Yeah.
Same with post-grunge. Post-grunge, like bands like Nickelback, Creed, Seether, 3 Days Grace. That gritty rock, hard rock sound, you can understand. Like, if you say post-grunge, you think of those bands.
Yeah.
But there's not any defining traits besides the sound.
Yeah.
Right? There's no defining song structure. There's no defining guitar work or singer or anything. It's just the overall sound.
Yeah, I don't think grunge died. It's just that era of those bands died. You know what I mean? Like it could have called it rock. It was rock.
It was rock. And people refuse to call it that because like, no, it's more than fuck off.
For new metal, I don't know if we talked about this band. Because I talked to Roger about it, and he kind of thinks they are new metal to a point. POD.
I would either say, I don't know if they're metal, but they're definitely like rap rock or new rock, because they're not very heavy. They're
older stuff.
Their older stuff is heavier, but it's not like, if you listen to like first album of Korn versus them, you're like, there's a clear difference in sound.
Yes.
But yeah, they're around that era.
Yeah, because they use the turntables and all that stuff.
They are the rap mixture, hip hop mixture, and rock and hard rock.
What about a band like Saliva? Where would they go?
The only song I know by them is the Michael Jackson cover they did.
They did a Michael Jackson cover?
Yeah. Which song was it? Hold on. I think it was. They Don't Care About Us.
Okay, you need to check out Click Click Boom sometime. That is really good. And Always is a good one too. They have some good ones. But I talked to Roger about that too, and he says that he feels like they're more of a band that kind of, not almost like a rock band, but they're not rock. It's so hard to explain what they are because they're hard, but they're not hard. They're radio. Maybe they're radio metal. You know what I mean? Like they're radio friendly because they have hard music, but they're not. I don't think you're going to see Saliva opening up for Judas Priest or something.
I've always considered if it's heavier than what you'd consider like something like Nickelback or maybe Nickelback's a bad answer, but like if it's harder than like your normal rock bands like Guns N' Roses, Nickelback, Pink Floyd, whatever, Chili Peppers, whatever.
Yep.
If they're harder than that but lighter than metal bands, they're hard rock. Yeah. I've always, even if they are very different from like other hard rock bands, like kind of just like if it's too light to be rock, it's too light, or too heavy to be rock, too light to be metal, it's hard rock.
Hard rock.
Regardless of what the difference is between the bands.
That's pretty good.
That's just to throw it in there for simplicity.
That's not too bad. That's a good way to describe it. Red Hot Chili Peppers are definitely a band that you can't really pick out another band that sounds like them. No. And you kind of like off branch, like Sublime at times, 311 at times, Jane's Addiction at times.
They're all funk rock,
but what like people even say Faith No More was more of that.
Yeah, they're the weird sounding.
Yeah, that style of music never, like Chili Peppers are still going today, but and 311 is too and such. But that style is like not a lot of artists wanted to follow that
because it's
music.
Not a reasonable like it's not. I don't want to say this in a rude way, but you can't copy that style. No. Like it's so unique, and it doesn't even work with Chili Peppers. Like their hit songs are amazing. The rest of their songs, nobody knows. Like, you
Well,
listen
unless
to
you're a fan, unless you're hard,
unless you're a
yeah,
hardcore fan.
yeah.
But like Californication, there's 3 or 4 hit songs, and then the rest of the album, the 20 other songs are complete, like, nobody knows them, like, because
Well,
they're just.
I like Dirt.
Well, sure, like,
That's
you
just
like
so
songs,
stupid.
but they're
Yeah,
like, it's such a hit or miss genre, like, sound,
yeah.
that there's no point copying them, because even Chili Peppers himself, the founders of that sound, can't do it perfectly.
You know what's funny too is like for a lot of the Chili Pepper stuff, Blood, Sex, Sugar, Magic, and oh, what was their second one? That has my friends on it and all that. One Hot Minute. That's what it's called. Um, I just like the radio songs too. I've listened
Yeah,
to the albums
like,
and just like we have the albums and we'll listen to them sometimes and it's like, Then that radio song because like, oh yeah, there's the radio song, and then you're
yeah,
back to the
exactly.
And I feel like bands like that. That's where I like the greatest hits.
Yeah, exactly.
That's where I can go for a greatest hits. And
Like,
nothing. They don't make horrible music. That's not what I'm saying.
no.
It's just music I don't relate to. I don't vibe to. I don't
Yeah.
get into.
It's like their big hits are their opus magnum in a way. Like, they're regardless of what album it's on, it's like, if it's not a big hit, it just doesn't hit the same. Like, it
No,
doesn't sound the same. It doesn't feel the same.
no. And I would love like. There's a lot of band. Like for example, like I know your favorites are like Maiden and Megadeth. I will probably never own one of their actual albums, and that's just me personally. But
Yeah.
if they had a greatest hits,
Megadeth does. Iron Maiden technically does, but not really.
yeah. See, greatest hits, I'm all for because it's like, oh, that's a radio song. That's a song that was on a movie. This is that. I know
Yeah.
this. It's like okay, and it's not that I don't have any. I don't hate them. It's just I've
You're
already
not a hardcore fan.
right. I've already into Alice in Chains and Metallica and stuff. I don't want to or Bon Jovi, even old Jovi. I don't need to get into something new and try to because also when you look at it, when you get into these bands that have like 12, 13 albums, it's almost like a TV show. You see that it's like, oh, everyone says this show is really good. Well, how many seasons? Well, they're in their 11th season, and you're like,
Yeah,
I don't really want to go back and watch.
It's the One
Yeah,
Piece thing. I don't think you know what One Piece is, but it's an anime that's 1,000 episodes long.
yeah,
And people who don't watch it, or people who watch it, are like, it's the best anime of all time. People who don't watch it are like, I'm not gonna sit around because people always say it's like the first 200 episodes are like not great. You have to wait until it starts getting good. And it's like, I'm not gonna wait that long for it to get good.
yeah.
Like, you want to just watch what you watch and like it. Or you want to watch shorter shows that are like, hey, I like this show.
Yeah.
This is short. I can watch it. It's great.
Exactly. And
Same with music. You want to listen to songs you know.
yeah, I think that's why the Black Album works so good for Metallica. Like we said, shorter songs. There wasn't little drawn out guitar solos or anything like that. You had like what? Remember I think the longest song was like 7 minutes. The shortest was like 4.
Just under 7.
Yeah. So that's a Bob Rock knew what he was doing. He made a radio album, or you know what I mean? Like
yeah. Oh, he made a radio hit.
Yeah.
He knew what he was doing.
And same with TV shows, same with anything. You don't want to sit through a long. That's why we try to keep our podcasts at an hour if we can, because we know people don't want to listen for long periods of time. They got stuff going on, and
ironically say that talking about Metallica because those episodes were fucking long.
Well, we kind of had to have those ones be long, but
yeah, people have short attention spans and they want to spend their time doing.
Or they're only listening if they're driving to work or home. Yeah. Maybe it's a half-hour drive there and back. You want to make it an hour. There you go.
Yeah.
We're going to be going into something coming up into. We've already talked about this in the last episode. We're going to do seasons. We're going to go into a season 2 eventually after our 25th episode. We did the Metallica thing, you and I, because we know Metallica. Yeah. No one else really did. What other bands? We've talked about Green Day and Offspring. What other bands would we like to maybe do a deep dive and do a show on?
I don't know. That's hard because there's bands like obviously Iron Maiden, Metallica, Iron Maiden, Megadeth, bands that I know that I could easily do.
Same, yeah. Vice versa, same with me. Yeah. I know bands too I could do, but yeah.
For bands that we both know, I'm not sure if there's any ones like Green Day and Offspring we both know very well.
Avenged
Avenged Sevenfold would be a good one.
We could do that.
I know them very well. You know a good amount of their early stuff.
I know their early. I know, like, you know what I mean. Again, it's like I know their early stuff. You know their later stuff. Yeah.
That would be a good one.
Yeah.
System might not be a bad one.
I'm pretty good at the first few albums of System.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they only have 5. So
yeah, I only know I think the first 3. I think I really got into. or know at least. Yeah, I don't. Maybe Eminem.
We could do an Eminem one, yeah.
Yeah,
That would be a different one, but
yeah. Because I know you. We would actually that would be a good one because you know how I voiced my opinion on a few things regarding Eminem about his samples and such. And I
oh
would
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
and so I mean I would love to get into that. Yeah, I don't know, like maybe Alice in Chains,
I think
maybe.
that's a good one, but I gotta listen to more of them first,
Yeah.
which I do plan to do anyways.
Well, again, they only have like 5 albums too, so you won't
Yeah,
be.
because I got one new one and then like a
Yeah,
bunch of old
and
ones.
their other older albums, like 2 of their albums are only EPs. Like one has 7 songs, the other one has 4. So
Oh, so
it's
yeah.
yeah. Unless I mean, the only other option is like, what do we like for pop music? Like we could do Tay Tay.
I don't know that much. I like her, but I don't know.
Well, we could, I
We
mean,
could
I don't
talk. We
know.
could have a talk, like an episode on
Yeah,
her and talk
yeah.
about
I
it.
mean,
But
talk about where she came from till now, and because I remember her country stuff. I didn't like any of that.
nah, I didn't.
It
I didn't
wasn't
care
until
for
she went
that.
pop, I was like, oh, she's actually good.
Yeah, she when she started doing her singing songwriter stuff, then I
Oh,
was like,
before
pretty
we end
cool.
this episode, let's talk a little bit about this then. What's the deal right now with pop artists and such wanting to go country? Beyonce is a perfect example. Like, why are they going
Because
country?
okay, so we talked about this a little bit last episode.
Yeah, because with the Jelly Roll thing and everything.
Yeah, I think what it is pop and hip hop are mainstream, and musicians are always trying to find something rebellious, and just as same as so are listeners, because you want something that's not you want something that's your own, right?
Right.
With metal, like with Metallica fans, they didn't like Metallica getting big in the '90s because they wanted it to be their own little thing that
Yep.
they could hold. Um, and same nowadays. The issue comes to if you want that, you're gonna normally go something rebellious. You don't want something that follows the mainstream. You don't want something that many people can listen to or everybody likes.
Right.
And you got two options right now because pop and hip hop are your mainstream. Hip hop used to be very rebellious. Now it's just the mainstream.
Yeah.
So you have, and nobody's gonna go to the old styles. Like no one's gonna do classical. No one's gonna do jazz or blues because they're just too. They're not listenable
Well,
in the
it's
sense
the,
that like
yeah.
they're not radio or
No, if
streamable.
they do it, they're doing it for themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So your options are rock and metal or country or electronic, but like they do that anyways.
Right.
And country is the easier one because all it takes is put a twang in your voice and there you go.
Yeah.
Put a twang in the guitar, put a twang in your voice, and you get country. And I think that's why everyone's going to country. Also, it's just a good genre. Like the pop country sounds good. I don't like a lot of it because it's overused, but the ones that are good they sound good.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's just easier. Like it's already poppy.
It is.
You just need to put the twang. And
That's
like,
so weird to think that that's an in thing. It's kind of sad because a guy we used to work with, Aiden, he was always playing country, and now that's like the new in thing where
yeah,
it's
I don't know. I love country, but I like old country. I like outlaw country. I like country by people who understand the genre. They don't just join it for the trend.
and that is why I like certain punk bands, and that's why pop punk to me was always it was catchy, but they missed the boat entirely on what it was supposed to be.
Yeah,
it was supposed
I
to
get
be
that.
fighting against the agenda of the politicians and the way the world is to better humans, and and country was about. I mean, look at Johnny Cash, some of the stuff he sang about.
Yeah, oh
right?
yeah, Johnny Cash, Willie Jennings,
Willie Nelson,
Willie
all those
Nelson,
guys.
those
Yeah.
old school, even Hank Williams. They were outlaws. They were what you consider now as gangsters and like metalheads, and like they were the outlaws of their generation because back in that time it was Elvis and it was Beatles that were popular and Pink Floyd and Led Zeppelin that were like, if you weren't those, you were an outcast.
Yeah.
And nowadays and they were telling real stories. They like obviously a lot of those old songs, they weren't great catchy songs. A lot of them were just stories with music.
Yeah.
But it fits so much better because it wasn't generic.
No,
it
it wasn't.
Unique. Each song had a different story to tell and it had something unique about it.
Definitely did, and that's something that's missing in a lot of bands today, a lot of songs today.
Yeah.
It's just the way it is, unfortunately.
And I don't think it's a fault on any of the artists. It's the fault on the fact that music's so big.
Yeah.
It's so big nowadays that if you want to do something like that, then there are plenty of people that do that, but they're so small you won't be able to find them.
I know. And God bless those musicians who keep trying, and I hope their stuff gets out there so it can be heard. That's something that I know back in the day, it was a lot harder to get stuff out and heard because there wasn't online to do so.
It's easier to get stuff out. It's harder to find stuff.
Yeah. Out. But people, I mean, really, back then they hustled so hard. Back then they would bring their demo tracks to concerts and
festivals,
hand them out. To fans.
I remember hearing some interviews of, I think, Iceland Kills and like Avenged Sevenfold and whatnot doing that during the early days, where they'd go to a festival, they wouldn't be playing, but they'd be out there handing the CD out.
Yeah. So to listen, and then someone's going to hear it, and someone's going to dig it.
Even, just to get it out.
Yeah, and that's what you got to do. And nowadays, there's no need to do that because social media is everywhere. You can sell yourself so easily.
If you can make a trend song, you can make it big.
Yeah,
that's it.
And I mean, it's kind of funny because we should be taking our own words there to heart, because you and I could easily be selling this podcast 100 times more than what we do, but
that's not what we're looking
for. Our job is, we're not looking to make it big. If we happen by accident, awesome.
Yeah.
That would be cool, but
this is for us to have fun.
It is. And if anyone's coming along for the ride, awesome. Thank you for doing that. We appreciate it. This is episode number 24. You've sat through 24 episodes of
bullshit.
Yeah, bullshit.
Utter bullshit.
Of two guys who work at crappy jobs, one who's like older than the other, who have different eras in music, who somehow combine those eras to know each other's music, to sit here and talk for an hour about crap, and it gets listened to.
Yeah, somehow.
I love it. It's awesome.
It's brilliant.
Yeah, it's so cool. As for this one, I guess the only thing we can say is that solo artists, to go solo, it's good. It gives people a chance to do something different and experiment, to get away from the classic style. It gives them a chance to breathe, in a sense, to get their stuff out there.
And a creative break.
And it helps because fans will buy that stuff too because they're a fan.
The hardcore fans.
Yeah. If you're a hardcore fan of that band, you're gonna get the solo stuff of.
Yeah. Even if you don't like it, you'll probably get it because you like the artist, right?
Exactly. So everyone, thank you for tuning in on this kind of a random. This one may have been more random than the other one, but it had good flow. We ended up talking about a lot of cool stuff.
Yep.
And number 25 will be our big one. It'll be our season finale. Jackson and I will have to figure out what we're gonna do for that one. It'd be.
Who fucking knows?
Yeah, it's got to be something cool.
We got a month to figure it out.
Yeah. It is going to be something special. We're most likely going to have the crew back for that one, because why not? It's number 25. We're going to go out with a bang. Maybe we'll play that song, AJR, go out with a bang song for that.
That's good. I love AJR.
Yeah.
That's so good.
Yeah, that's such a killer tune.
We'll do one on them, a podcast on them. They're great.
Yeah.
Actually, we'll get Josh on that one because he listened to them a lot.
Okay, cool. And actually, big ups on me for actually knowing that song and that artist, by the way. Like, how the fuck did I know that anyway?
New age pop?
Yeah.
Like, what?
All right. Anyways, for this episode, I hope you all enjoyed it. For New Apartment Radio Podcast, I am the host, DJ Bill, with the producer, Jackson. We only got one thing left to say there, good buddy. Peace!